Hello and welcome to Speaking Out on Financial Abuse, stories of survival and hope after financial abuse in a marriage or romantic partnership. I'm your host, Lori G. And have you ever driven by one of these beautiful mansions, manicured lawn, custom pool, tennis courts, and wondered what kind of princess lives in a house like that? Well, you're going to meet one today. Today we welcome Sue. Sue is going to tell you her anonymous story of how she lived in and ultimately escaped the gilded cage. Sue, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where in the world are you and where are you originally from?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn and we moved to Long Island. I grew up in Plainview, New York. And right now I'm living in Bayshore, New York.
I love New York City.
Yeah, it's a little cold, but it's nice.
And what do you do for a living, or what is your professional background?
I am a court stenographer. I am the one that takes down what's going on in depositions and courts, the little machine. And that's what I've been doing for about 35 years. I've been doing that. So that's basically all I've done my working life.
Is that an independent thing, or do you work for a law firm?
It's an independent thing. Basically, I do what's called depositions. It determines if it's going to go to court or not. And I work for an agency. And in the afternoons, I get my job. They send me a job. And since COVID, I have worked in my house. I have not gone out and worked since COVID. Before, I used to go out to different attorneys' offices, to the courthouse, to different places. I would go to Brooklyn, Queens, New York, all over the place. And now I'm just working from home.
Did that give you working knowledge of the legal profession? I mean, it must be really interesting to do depositions on, is it civil cases, criminal, or both?
It's not that interesting. I hate to say, after hearing the same thing for 30 years, it's a lot of car accidents. It's a lot of slip and falls. It's a lot of people who get hurt on a construction site or get hit by a car if they're on a motorcycle or a bicycle, or they slip and fall at someone's building. So it's basically that. It's not that exciting. You know, it's not like murders and things like that or anything criminal. But
so what was money like growing up in your own household? What was your household like growing up?
I grew up in like a middle upper class. I lived in a beautiful house in a lovely neighborhood. I had a great childhood. My father owned an insurance agency, so he did pretty well. We weren't over the top, but my parents are amazing and they helped me a lot and they always gave. So I didn't really, in my lifetime, think about money per se. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Until I got out on my own, because I lived there and they took care of me and I didn't have to do anything as far as going out for work until I was about 17 or 18.
And then you went to college?
No, I never went to college. I went to a business school. It took me about 2.5 years to graduate. It's very, very hard to learn. It's steno, but on a machine, and it's really hard. There are not many court reporters out there that are going to school for it now. A lot of people are retiring because we're old timers. We call them newbies, and people are not going out to learn this. And it's great money if you want to work and really work hard. It's good money. When I met my husband, I worked at a financial company, a big one. And I had been a court reporter all my life. And my head wasn't into it. So I took a little bit of a break and I worked as an administrative assistant in a large financial company. And he had clients there. So I remember I had to drop something off. And I was in the elevator and he was in the elevator and he started talking to me and he was complimenting me. And he said, if you want to go out, here's my card. And I looked at his card and it was like, money management. And, I was a little impressed. He seemed really nice. And I called him, which I never really do. And I called him and we went out and we had a really nice dinner. And the next day he sent me to my office a bouquet of flowers, but I have never in my life had flowers like that. And that impressed me a lot. So that was the start of it.
Well, at
And
least you saw him in person first, too. It wasn't like you met him online.
no, I met him. I saw him. I went out to dinner with him and then we started dating. And that was the start of my journey.
What was your first impressions of him? What was it that first said, okay, he's checking some boxes here?
He was nicely dressed in a nice suit and he had his suitcase and he came off very sure of himself. And I kind of liked that. There was something there that I liked about him. He seemed very strong. And, but I soon learned after that strong can become narcissistic. And yeah, I didn't like that after a while.
Had he been married before?
I had been married before. I was married for a very short time. I met him. I lived in Florida. I met him. All my friends were getting married. I thought he was a really nice guy. And then I realized that he financially, he lied about college he went to. He lied on his resume. He couldn't get a job. And that put me also into a spiral because I married him. But we got divorced pretty soon after we got married. I knew I had made a mistake. And then he passed away.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your first husband was an abusive partner. And even though it was a short-lived situation, it sounds like, or maybe he was an unstable partner.
Yes, I can tell you a story that made me realize that what did I do? We moved from Florida and we lived with my parents in Long Island for a little bit. And then we were going to find an apartment. And I didn't know at that point that he had lied to me and that he was having trouble. He told me he got a good job. So one night I went out with one of my girlfriends to a pottery class and I left him home with my parents who liked him and he felt comfortable. And he was in the guest room where we were staying. And I don't know what happened. He must have gone through the drawers or something or found pictures of me and with other guys and other guys. So I come home and my mother says to me, he's in the backyard. He's really upset. And I said, okay. I went out in the backyard and he was in his full military gear. He had been in the military. I looked at him and it scared me. It scared me. And we were getting married in a few days. And yeah, he wasn't abusive to me, but he was a little unstable. I started, and I have to say that I never had great taste in men. I never picked men that were really nice to me or really caring, kind, listened to me. It was bad because I had had a few other boyfriends before that, and I had very, very low self-esteem, and I just wanted to be loved, and so we started dating, and I didn't really see anything in the beginning. But then once we started dating, I started to see a lot of different things. He was not nice to people. We would go out to eat to restaurants. He was mean to the waiters. He was mean to
That's a big warning. You really
God.
can tell. I mean, now in hindsight, I can, now there's the ones who do the opposite too, where they just gaslight. They're just the nicest people in the world to staff, like overly nice. Like they'll even overtip usually with your money, but that's really interesting. You caught that warning. Yeah.
Well, he was only nice to women. He was only nice to a certain type of woman, skinny. So throughout my marriage, he would really bother me about if I was skinny or fat. And I started to realize that he was putting me down a lot. And I just didn't like his attitude. He checked women out all the time. It used to drive me crazy.
Was he in good shape? I mean, was he like
he was okay.
I mean, for a guy who's looking for a supermodel on the street, or
that's what he looks for. And I'm definitely not a supermodel. I was, a lot cuter when I was younger, but he just started to show me that he wasn't the nicest person. And I started working for him. I left the job that I had. We weren't married yet. I started working for him, and I saw him in that capacity. And that was terrible. People quit all the time. He made people cry. But at that point, he was getting very successful. He had a great reputation. He did really good work. He was a financial planner. And we started to go away on trips because he won awards, and we went to France and we went to Mexico, and we went to different countries. And I started to really start to see what he was like. And then we got married, and you think you can change someone, but you can't. And pretty much since we started to get married, he wouldn't let anyone come to the wedding. I should have known then. We got married in St. John. He wanted to go away. We had two strangers who are our witnesses.
Was it a sudden elopement? Or
No, it wasn't.
He just said, hey, we're going to get married, but no one's allowed to see us get married?
Yes.
How does that work?
He asked me to get married. He gave me the ring. He proposed to me. And then we started to plan. And I said, I'd like my parents and my sister, I'd like my family to be there. Now, I don't care about my friends as much, but he said, no one's going to come. It's just going to be you and I. And at that point, I said, is this how it's going to be in our marriage, that he's going to tell me all the time what I have to do, what I can't do, what I can do? And that was the start of when we got back from getting married, and he started to become very verbally abusive, constantly telling me what was wrong with me and what I looked like, and how dumb I was, how stupid I was. I can't do anything. He would tell me that, I don't know if I could say this. He would tell me that I could ruin a wet dream. He was just really not nice to me. And even out in public, he wasn't nice to me. My friends started to say to me, we don't like the way he treats you. And then after a while, they would say things to him, and he would say to me, you cannot see that person anymore. They cannot come over.
And as the abuse grew, his success grew as well.
Without a doubt. I couldn't believe that in a span of time, how much money he started to make. And we lived in a house in Greenwich, which is a very, very, it's a very expensive area to live in. And we built our house. We had, it was there, but we had some work done on it. And that took about a year. And we lived in an apartment, a small apartment. And I was pregnant. And that was
the first time. Was this your first child?
Unfortunately, I had some miscarriages. I was having problems getting pregnant, and that was another thing. He was not nice to me. I remember when I had my miscarriage. Unfortunately, my first miscarriage, I had to give birth, and that was a horrific thing.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, when you're laying in a hospital and you hear babies crying, and then you're going to go home. And I remember we left, and he was driving in his car really fast, and he was on the phone, and I was crying. And then I got home, and he started to talk about my body again. And he took my glasses, he stepped on them, and I stayed. I could have left then, and I stayed.
Yeah, well, and this is earlier in your marriage as well.
Way earlier in my marriage. And I think that was part of me not being able to get pregnant, is because it's not easy when you're stressed all the time.
Well, I mean, you don't realize that you're under emotional abuse. You're someone in fight or flight.
Yes.
You've got somebody who has financial control over you, but you're also walking on eggshells with that person because they are volatile.
I was scared of him. I would, at that point, he wasn't physical with me, but his verbal abuse was unbelievably bad. And I was scared of him. And the control with the money is that he gave me a credit card, and he would say to me, I don't want you to go above so-and-so. And
you mean a dollar amount above a certain dollar?
Yeah. I think I had said that at one point he was trying to bribe me with money to lose weight. Now, I'm going to preface that I don't think that I think that I was not obese or heavy. And that was just in his mind. And he would take the credit card and he would dangle it in front of me and say, if you're a good girl, I'll give you $500. If you're not a good girl, I'm going to put you on the scale. And if you don't lose weight, and it used to be a constant thing. I had no money to myself. We didn't have a joint account. We had a joint credit card.
Was your name on the title and property of the marriage?
Yes, my name and his name was on it, and it ended up going into foreclosure, and I lost so much money because I had to pay my attorneys. And he let the house go into foreclosure. It was a beautiful house. We had renovated it. It was beautiful. And because he didn't want me to have any money extra, because we were going through a divorce, he did not pay the bills. I had sheriffs coming to my house telling me that the electricity was going to be turned off. And then I had to call my parents, and they ended up supporting myself and my children. And he would give me money once we got divorced.
Well, let's back up a little bit. How did it go from you've had a baby?
I had a baby.
And he is really turning out to be a jerk. How did it go from that to divorce?
Well, then I had my daughter. So I was married to him for almost 10 years, but our divorce took a long time. I remember when my son was born, I was pregnant with my son, and he wanted me to do a spreadsheet. Now, I don't know how to do a spreadsheet. I'm going to admit that. I never have done it. I have had no reason to do it. And I remember I was sitting at the desk. We were in our small apartment.
Spreadsheet for what? To do what?
The renovation of our house. He wanted me to put every little thing that we bought, and I'm not a bookkeeper. I didn't know how to do it. And I used to sit at the table and cry, and he used to stand over me and say, "How dumb can you be?" And one time when I was pregnant, I started to cry, and I guess I frustrated him, and he spit on me.
Oh my gosh. Who was handling the finances?
He did.
Okay, so paying the mortgage, paying the bills, paying anything.
Everything. He had someone do it for him. He had an accountant that paid all his bills for his company, and he never went through the mail. But he had someone, because he didn't do anything. He didn't know how to put a light bulb in. He didn't know how to put a car seat in a car. He had people doing everything for him. And as he got wealthier, he always would call people, and then they would come in, and then he would turn them off, and they would quit. It was always chaos. It was always mental chaos to me.
It sounds like you had a lot of people around too. I mean, you must have had a house staff and...
No. It didn't have a house staff, but we had a lot of things going on in our house with the renovation. So we always had people in the house, and I always had friends over with babies and mommy and me and stuff like that. And I liked having people over because then it took me away from knowing what was going to happen when everyone left or when he came home from work.
So was your only contact with money, like the piece of plastic he gave you, or did you write checks?
No, I wrote checks for some personal stuff for me. I had a checking account, and he never left money around. When I realized that I wanted to leave, one of the reasons I didn't leave was because I had no money.
Oh, yeah.
So I had zero in the bank when I left my ex. And that's what I was frightened about.
So what brought this to a head where either did you file for divorce or did he file for divorce?
He knew I wanted to go for divorce. I was looking at attorneys, and he went ahead and he filed for divorce because he had to have his name first.
Oh, sure.
Against me. I was like the defendant, and he loved that. I filed for divorce.
Oh, I have to get rid of her.
Yeah.
I know that game.
I'm not going to have to pay her anything because I'm suing her. And that started, I would say, months before I left. I really decided to leave when he strangled me on Father's Day. I was holding my daughter in my arms. It was Father's Day. I had gotten him a gift. And again, I didn't have a lot of money. I had this credit card. And if it went over a certain amount, I was scared. So I bought him a gift, nothing big. And he opened it up and he threw it on the floor. And I got so angry. And I cursed at him, which I very rarely did. And I went upstairs. I had my daughter in my hands, and I wanted to get out of the house with my daughter and my son. And I went to go pick up the phone to call. I called my mother, and he came upstairs. He took the phone out of my hand. My mother heard all of this. He then went around, took all the phones off the hook. So when she called back, it was busy. And he pushed me down on the bed, and he got on top of me, and he proceeded to strangle me. And I said, I'm going to die. My daughter's going to stand here and watch me die. I really thought I was going to die. And then something snapped in him. Maybe he realized if he killed me, he was going to go to jail and he wouldn't be. So he stopped and he got arrested. My mother called the police.
Oh, thank goodness.
And they came to the door, and I said, oh, everything's great. Nothing's happening. And they said, have you seen your neck? And I said, no. They said, you have 10 fingerprints on your neck. And they arrested him. And that was the start. Oh, no, I took him back because he said, if he can't work and make money, then I'm going to have no money. It was all about the money. So I dropped the charges.
Oh, my goodness. So he was able to convince you that no matter what I do, you have to cut me loose because I'm your only means of support.
And not only that, he didn't want to have any kind of record because in finances, you get background checks. Yeah, you can't get your licenses, So I took him back. He was ordered to go to a class, an anger management class. And then we were ordered to go for therapy. And that was interesting.
How did that go?
She told me to leave him, and you're not really supposed to do that. She looked at me and she said, I don't think you ever will change. He's such a narcissist. He is not a nice person. She saw it.
Yeah.
She saw it. So it didn't go well. And then I just said, I've got to get out of here. And I started again. And I got papers together, and he noticed something in my trunk, and it was the papers, and he started to get the papers out, and I stopped him, and he took me and he flipped me over the car, and the police came again, and that was it. And then he had to leave. They had to take him around the house for him to get his stuff, and he couldn't come back.
So you stayed at the house, and he was removed from the property.
Yes. Yep.
And is this where your parents stepped in and started helping you out?
Unbelievably so. I'm embarrassed at my age to tell you how much money my parents have helped me, and all about my divorce, because he had to get the best attorneys, and so did I, because he was he had like 7 attorneys. They all quit, and he had to have a pit bull. He had to have someone who was going to rip me apart on the stand. And I had a very expensive attorney, and we spent a lot of time trying to get divorced.
And how long did you take to get divorced?
I want to say 3 years.
Wow.
I didn't live with him, but he stopped paying the bills in the house, and my house we had an indoor pool, and it started to get moldy, and he didn't pay the electricity bill, and my parents had to lend me money. And then we had to go to court because he had to pay me child support, and he didn't want to pay it. And then the judge almost threw him in jail, and it killed him that he had to pay me. I was getting a nice child support for a while, and then I moved, and that changed a little bit. And then my kids got older. And
Where did you move to when you left? Did you sell the house? This big mansion you had in
the house was in foreclosure. He got half, I got half. It wasn't much. The house was worth over $1 million. And it all went to the attorneys. So I didn't even have it as something I could lean on. So my parents were living in Florida by that time.
And they were retired?
Yes. And they said, come down to Florida. I'm thankful because my dad did very well. So it wasn't so hard for him to help me, but it broke my heart. It's very hard asking your parents for money.
Yeah. Although, I mean, if I were in that situation, if my parents had lived long enough to have seen the abuse situation I lived in for so long, they certainly would have done the same thing. And I can understand it's almost, it's a definite guilt, but
total guilt.
But to have family that you can go and lean on to get out of a dangerous situation, yes. Because the truth be told, women who are in these situations very often don't survive. They don't live because there isn't anywhere else to go, and they don't trust anyone, and they've been isolated.
I am blessed that I had my parents to help me.
And during your marriage, no matter how much he tried to isolate you, did you see a lot of your mom and dad or siblings? Or?
Well, I started to see my parents used to come over. He liked my parents. You have to like my parents. They're wonderful. And they saw how he treated me. They saw how he treated other people. We would go to family gatherings and he would kind of sit back because they weren't like a CEO of a business. And if they were a plumber or something else, he would not talk to them. If I had people come over, he would say, what do their husbands do? I only want you to invite people over where I can maybe get their husband as a client. That's another story. Yeah. So one day my parents came over and he got mad that I had hung up some kind of a picture in the kitchen. And I don't know what happened. He said, I told you not to put that up. My parents were there. And he kicked our door from the kitchen to the dining room.
Wow.
He kicked it and started slamming stuff and took the picture off it. My father and my mother were absolutely, he said, now you have to get out, to my parents. And they left and they didn't want to. And then my father came back and said to him, my father's 5'6". He's not the most intimidating guy.
He's so tough New Yorker.
Yeah. So he said, you're never to treat my daughter like that ever again if I see her. And my ex said to me, you're never to see your parents again. And I said, I'm going to see my parents. They didn't come over. I went to their house and I took my kids.
So this remained a bone of contention between you. The rest of your marriage was your relationship with your mom and dad, who certainly were there for you.
Well, I had a lot of girlfriends and that lived there, and we had kids at the same age. So I had a lot of girlfriends, and I used to do daytime was fine because he would be working. Nighttime, towards the end, I slept in another room. And when I heard his car come into the driveway, I would lay under my covers and say, please, please let him leave me alone. And one time I bought something, a little statue, and I woke up and he had put it in the bed that I was staying in. And he said, get this thing out of here. So one thing I want to say is that just because you live like in a guilt, just because you marry someone with money, it doesn't mean anything. Abuse does not, it doesn't matter. You could think, oh my God, I'm marrying a guy and he has money. He's going to take care of me. He's going to be a great father. My kids are going nope. He was bipolar also. He just actually was diagnosed as it. So.
Was that after the marriage he was diagnosed?
But I kind of knew it. He once took his father who worked for him and he didn't like what his father did. And he took his father and pushed him up against a wall with his neck. And yeah. I mean, I could tell you a million stories, and it's not all physical. It's all a lot of abuse. And that tends to really take a toll on you.
And where is he now? Are your kids grown?
My kids, my daughter is 25. She lives on her own. And my son is 27 and he works with my ex. But they both know. My daughter called me last night. She was with him. This sounds terrible, but all we're talking about is money. He will buy her. He just bought her a car because he's buying her love. But she knows what it's like. She called me and told me a story last night. They went out to dinner and she didn't like the way he treated the kid that was giving out the bread and the water, and he didn't speak English. And she was mortified. And she knows, and my son knows. But for some reason or other, my son is the only one that he will talk to. And they don't work together. He works in New York, my son. My ex doesn't leave the house. He's like a hermit now.
Is he retired?
No, he'll never.
He is working. He's working
and he works from his house, and he doesn't go out, doesn't have any friends. He sits and pops pills. He was a drug addict. Yeah.
So how did your life change after you got out? So you got out, obviously there's a lot of financial chaos. You guys are very entangled property-wise. You had this mansion go into foreclosure, get very little out of it in exchange.
He fought me for custody of my kids.
And what was that situation?
He wanted to fight me for custody of my kids, even though one time I went out and he dressed my son in my daughter's clothes and my daughter in my son's clothes backwards. And he made macaroni and cheese and he left the water boiling and took a nap. He was not a good father. He was not. And it was very hard for him to be a good father. He had a daughter from another marriage. And she doesn't talk to him, and she changed her. She's married now. But so when I left, I was damaged. It took me years. I had such low self-esteem. All I thought about was money. What am I going to do? How am I going to survive? Can't keep on asking my parents for money. I got a job. I didn't go back to court reporting. I got a job in Florida. I was working at a law firm, and my parents helped me out. They helped me out a lot. And I wanted to move back to New York because I wasn't making any money, and I wanted to start court reporting. And he filed a motion for me not to be able to move back to New York. And the judge said he had never in his life ever had a father say, I don't want my kids to come back to New York or near me. I want them to stay in Florida. So
keep my kids at least 1,000 feet away from me.
Yeah.
At all costs. Okay, that is a little weird.
It was really weird. I could laugh about it now, but I remember he didn't call me, sent his attorney, and the judge just said, I don't even want to hear this. This is insanity. What kind of a person, other than a moron, he said that, would not want their kids to be closer to him? So I moved back to New York. I'm getting dates mixed up, but we had to go to court because he was fighting me for custody. And the day before we had to go to court, my kids had a lawyer. And in where we lived, they always put, if you're arrested, doesn't matter. They always put your name, your address. So everyone knew what he had done to me because he had been in the newspaper twice.
Oh, the busted paper.
Yeah,
I'm familiar.
Yeah. And the lawyer for my kids who did not like him, they saw the newspaper and they saw that he had been arrested the night before we went to court for this. And I think he had got a DUI, drugs and alcohol. And he walked into court. He couldn't even talk. He had his head on and the judge said, he said, I don't want custody of my kids. So I had to pay all this money for attorneys.
Oh,
he had no intention. So the judge let me move. And he didn't really see them when I lived there.
How long ago was that?
I lived there, I'd say, about 13 years ago.
Oh, okay. So it's been a while.
And then I moved back to New York and my kids turned 18 and they weren't getting any child support anymore. So I didn't really have much to do with them.
So what do you think you most learned from this?
Well, it took me a long time. And I was, like I said, I was damaged. I didn't date for years. I was angry. I was not nice. I just was not me because I'm a very nice person and I always have been to a fault. I always wanted people to love me. And I was talking to a therapist and she suggested, I said, I want to volunteer because I'm getting older. My kids are out of the house. I want to give back. And she said, well, I know of a place. It's called ECLIVES, and they deal with domestic violence, sexual assault, and trafficking. And I had to go interview, and they interviewed me. They had to do a background check, and I walked in there, and my whole life changed. I can cry. I don't want to, but they changed my life. These were people, women, who absolutely embraced me, and they have seen me grow. If you ask any of them, and I started to volunteer there, and all I wanted to do was be there. It's just a loving, kind place, and they help people so much. And I am now a VP of one of their advisory boards for domestic violence. I'm a rape crisis counselor. I do a lot with them. I'm part of their family, and they treat me as such. And they're the ones that have absolutely made me a much better person now, and realize that I could be a strong person and not have to take crap from everyone.
Well, and you've taken the resources that were given to you, it sounds like, and when you can pay it forward, and how many other people's lives you can change.
And it's really hard to feel good about yourself because you feel a lot of guilt. And then you start to think like, oh, maybe I did do this wrong. Or maybe if I do this, he'll be nicer to me. Or maybe and nothing I did ever made him happy, except when I remember I was ill. I had a thyroid problem. I had my thyroid removed and I lost a lot of weight and I was really skinny. And that was the only time that he was nice to me or didn't put me down as much. And then I got pregnant and had another baby.
So it was pretty short-lived, the compliments.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I ask this of every guest. And you really have had a wealth of experience with financial abuse in a romantic partnership. What's your tip for somebody who is in that situation right now. They're under financial abuse, they're under a form of domestic violence, they're in that partnership, they're still in that marriage, they haven't taken any steps yet at all. What would you suggest they do first?
Well, I think a lot of women don't leave because of they have no money. I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I've heard that women don't leave, because they're afraid, especially when they have kids, what are they going to do? Especially if you don't have support. So I suggest that if you're in a relationship like that, you try to get support. Try to see if there's someone that you could talk to. Like I went to ECLIVES, and they have different organizations all over the place. My mother always used to say this to me: save whatever money you could. I was in a situation where I didn't have a lot of cash, but if you're feeling this way, start to get your finances. If you can put some money aside, or if he gives you money, put it aside, because money is the word here that we're all scared of, not having money.
Yeah, sure.
And it's very frightening. And if you work on your own and you have a job, then you're not going to feel this way. You're not going to feel as much. But I didn't work. I didn't work for 13 years. And if you work, then you feel a little bit better about yourself. But you need to have people around you that you can talk to. And it's hard. I don't even really know what else to say. My mother used to say to me, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I never listened. If you're going to do it, you need to stay strong. What I did is I gave in. I got abused physically. He went to jail and he said to me, you're going to be poor living on the street, and I'm going to take your kids away. And I dropped the charges. So you really have to make sure that you want to do this. And like I said, if your husband gives you cash and money, like I would take some of that cash and just put it away, and just so you have a little bit of cash. My ex never gave me cash. Everything was a credit card, so that he could look and see what I bought. And then he would make me pay for it, even though I didn't really have money. It was bizarre.
With your money, make you pay for it with
Yes.
the money you were earning because you were working or not?
No, I was working in the beginning of our relationship, but yeah, I couldn't pay for it. He had to pay for it, but he would just dangle it in front of my face. So
Wow.
It was a sad situation, but I'm a much different person now, But it took a long, long time, and I didn't get help for a long time. So I will say that if you're in a situation that you need to try to go talk to someone or get help from someone.
And if you're already out of this situation and you have left this relationship or marriage of domestic violence, and you've been under financial abuse, what would be a tip for somebody who is starting over from scratch?
Never get married again. No, I'm only I live with my boyfriend now, but I would suggest taking care of yourself, self-care. I like to work out. I like to do something that's called diamond painting. You have to don't go right into a relationship. You need time to make yourself happy again, and that might take a long time. Just treat yourself right, and things will happen. I never listened to people that said that. I would lay on the couch and watch TV, and I never went out, and that's not the way to be. You have to stay strong and try self-care.
And try new things. Yeah. Build those new neural paths.
Yes.
New directions.
Yes. Go. There's so much stuff to do, the way you can meet new people. And, I think dating is a little hard. That part is hard when you leave. And it just is. To me, it was. But don't think about that. Just take care of yourself and your kids, and make sure that if you haven't done something that you used to love to do, start doing it again. Do things that'll take your mind off of things. Get a job, get a part-time job. I got a job. I started working right afterwards, and that helped me a lot, because you're out with people and you have your own money. But I do say to people, if your ex or your husband does make money, take him to court. Go to court. A lot of people will say, oh, I don't make a lot of money. And then they have to have forensic. We had forensic people come in and go through boxes of his stuff. And if you can get child support or some kind of support, you can go to court, and you don't need an attorney. You can go to the clerk's office, and they'll give you the documents, and you fill it out, and that's it. So don't just walk away if you feel that you can get some help monetarily. A lot of women will just say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. Don't do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're so traumatized. Betrayal trauma, has such an impact that you get out, you sign the papers like, I don't care anymore what I lose. I just want out of this mess.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great advice as well. Remember, you have value. And sometimes it isn't worth just walking away. And
no, and I know quite a few women and men who have done that. It's not always just can be women with men. It goes both ways, but most of the time it's the male who is the one who is the head of the household, so to speak. Yeah. So like I said, I enjoy working out. I just do a lot of stuff for myself. And I never used to be like that because I would feel like it was selfish. But if I want to go out with my friends, I go out with my friends. If I just go with the flow now. And I have such a different attitude. I don't care as much what people think of me, or I'm lucky I do have a really nice group of friends. So that part of it is lucky. So you do have to go out and try to meet people because it's lonely. I was lonely for a long time, so you need to just get out there a little bit. But it takes time. So I'm hoping that 2025 I'll be able to help more people out because I love volunteering. It gives me a lot of satisfaction. And I love meeting people and talking to people and let them know that they're not alone.
You don't ever have to be alone. There are so many resources out there that can help you, that will listen to you, and they will advise you, they will give you suggestions, and they will help you through this crisis. You can, regardless of where you are in a situation of financial abuse or any other form of domestic violence. There are resources waiting to help you get through this crisis, recover from the trauma, and thrive afterwards. Sue, I can't thank you enough for being on the show today and telling us your amazing story of how you escaped the gilded cage. And if anyone listening out there, if you have a story of your own about financial abuse in a domestic partnership or romantic partnership, please contact our show at www.financialabusehelp.net and sign up to tell your story to a global audience of listeners who will identify and really, really would benefit from hearing your story. Thank you again, and you're listening to Speaking Out on Financial Abuse.